Ms. Porter, you have 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name's Vicki Porter. I'm from Lake Mills, Wisconsin. I'm 51 years old. I started smoking cigarettes in college. You know what? I even remember the evening I started smoking. I'd just gotten dressed to go out, and I was listening to jazz records, drinking Irish coffee. I spotted a pack of Benson & Hedges ultralights that a friend had left behind in my dorm room. So feeling invincible, I took out one of those cigarettes and I lit it. Because what goes better with whiskey and jazz, right, than a cigarette? In just a few weeks, I was addicted to cigarettes and began a lifestyle of smoking that lasted for 23 years. After a few years of this smoking lifestyle, I realized it's not cool. It was revolting and embarrassing and deadly. But quitting smoking is very, very, very hard. Nobody tells you that. Over the years, I tried to quit many times, using many techniques. I tried cold turkey, nicotine gum, nicotine patches, all approved by the FDA. I tried 2 FDA-approved drugs, even tried one of those drugs twice. I tried hypnosis twice. I tried some hocus pocus called laser acupuncture. All failures. By now, I was around 40 years old, and I figured I just learned to live, to be content, to die a smoker, probably gasping for air like my grandmother and mother did when they died of lung cancer. Years ago now, a coworker of mine showed me an online ad for e-cigarettes. The promise was smoking without the harm or smell. So I ordered one because I thought, what if it's real? What if it's real? And as it turns out, it's actually real. Around 2010, I stopped smoking only because of e-cigarettes. It literally changed and probably saved my life. 9 years later, my doctor says my lungs are healthy. I can climb stairs without being winded. I exercise 4 times a week. I can walk for miles and miles. I can do things now I haven't done since before my lungs became overwhelmed with the filth and deadly toxicity of cigarettes. Vaping is a health miracle to me, because without it, I'd probably be on my way to a lung cancer diagnosis. 2 main reasons why e-cigarettes work. First, the inhalation of a far less harmful, not safe, but less harmful nicotine dose similar to smoking, without the deadly toxins caused by burning tobacco. And second, and this is critically important, flavors. Flavors matter to me, an adult ex-smoker. Flavors are not an industry-driven innovation. They are a user-driven innovation. Big Tobacco didn't come up with the idea of flavors. Consumers, adult smokers like me, came up with the idea of flavors. We demanded it. The tobacco flavors that everybody seems to think are so wonderful of the early e-cigarettes were awful. Those flavors mimic the taste of a cigarette and were poor imitations of the cigarettes we actually like to smoke. We don't want our vapor to taste like cigarettes. We're trying to quit them. We want something that tastes good, that makes us want to keep vaping. Flavors keep us vaping. Flavors keep us not smoking. I took a survey on my Facebook page of ex-smokers turned vapors. About 150 people left comments, and I admit this is not scientific, but at last count, approximately 90% use flavors other than tobacco. These are middle-aged and older ex-smokers. These flavors are demanded by adults, sold by adults, consumed by adults. And we're not alone. According to a recent survey of more than 69,000 vapors, 92% preferred non-tobacco flavors. Now, much has been made of the lung illnesses tied to vaping, but it's manifestly dishonest to blame e-cigarettes and nicotine liquid for these illnesses. All available information overwhelmingly suggests the lung diseases being diagnosed have exactly nothing to do with nicotine vapor products and everything to do with adulterated street drugs or products, notably oil-based THC. I've now been vaping for 9 years, and I've never been healthier. And none of the nicotine vapor products that I use contain oil. E-cigarettes are a public health miracle that America is about to squander based on misinformation and disinformation. So let me remind the committee members of a few points. The FDA and local agencies, communities, and parents absolutely need to do a better job of enforcing existing laws and obligations to see to it that kids don't use e-cigarettes. But you don't need to ban the product to make progress on that mission. In 2018, the UK's Royal College of Physicians published a comprehensive scientific report which concluded that vaping nicotine can eliminate almost all the harm from smoking cigarettes, and recommended promoting the use of e-cigarettes to smokers as widely as possible. The report also indicated that vaping nicotine is at least 95% less harmful than smoking. Public Health England concurs. Even the American Cancer Society is beginning to understand the promise of tobacco harm reduction, stating that e-cigarettes are, quote, likely to be significantly less harmful for adults than smoking regular cigarettes, and they encourage adults who have failed other FDA-approved methods to switch to e-cigarettes. E-cigarettes were the only thing that worked for me to quit smoking. This product probably saved my life. Vaping has helped more than 8 million adult smokers quit completely when all other options failed for them. I think that's incredible. 8 million people quit smoking. On behalf of former smokers, I hope you'll reject the general war on vaping, and I encourage you to proceed with these comments in mind. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. I need to correct the record on a couple things that were just said. There is no evidence to suggest that e-cigarettes are safe or even safer than cigarettes. That's why the FDA just released their regulations directed at Juul. Secondly, the CDC just came in and presented evidence that they don't know the cause of the current outbreak and did not rule out nicotine e-cigarettes.
May I respond?
No. We are about to start questioning, and you can respond then.
Okay.
Ms. Porter, you wanted to respond to some of the other congressmen. I'd like to give you an opportunity to say what you wanted to say.
Well, what I wanted to say was, with regard to the chairman's comments that there's no evidence that e-cigarettes are less harmful, that's just simply not true. It was a comprehensive scientific report that was generated by the United Kingdom's Royal College of Physicians. It wasn't just an opinion. It wasn't anecdotal, as it were. It was actually a scientific report. Also, and I'm not sure how many people had a chance to see this on CBS This Morning last week, Dr. David Abrams from the NYU College of Global Public Health indicated that abundant evidence exists that the cancer biomarkers associated with e-cigarettes are vastly lower than the ones that are associated with smoking. I would also like to ask if somebody could please answer me this particular question. What is the particular mechanism by which PG and VG could possibly cause disease? I recall Dr. Rizzo said something about PG and VG causing disease. What is the particular mechanism that vegetable glycerin or propylene glycol actually could cause disease?
I don't think you're supposed to answer questions, but I'll ask that question of Dr. Rizzo. Could you respond?
Well, the short answer, but I'll expand, is that we really don't know anything about these devices because they haven't been studied in any rigorous manner. When you heat a substance up to the temperatures that e-cigarettes do, you no longer have the same properties of the compound that we knew before. A compound that could have been ingested safely is now being vaporized and inhaled into the lungs, which is a much different part of the body than the stomach. So in short, we don't know the toxins, what the toxins are doing. We know toxins are created. And even if we say toxins are less than cigarettes, that's a very low bar to beat. And 7,000 chemicals in tobacco means there's still 350 in 5% of e-cigarettes.
Ms. Porter, if we banned e-cigarettes or you're no longer able to get them, it's obviously important for you not to smoke. What would you do? What would be your fallback position?
If I may, the 7,000 chemicals that the doctor was talking about are actually the chemicals that are generated when tobacco is burnt. The nicotine extracted from tobacco does not generate 7,000 chemicals in a 5% solution in e-liquid. That's when you actually light something on fire and inhale the particulate matter, the carbon monoxide, the various carcinogens into your lungs. I know this because I smoked and I decided to learn about it. What would I do? I would probably just find a way to get my e-cigarettes. That's what I would do. That's me, though. I'm a very knowledgeable user, and I'm a very knowledgeable navigator of this marketplace. I'd probably order from China. Most people, and in fact, anecdotally again, but most people that I have spoken to who vape would just simply go back to smoking. Because the reason we're vaping instead of smoking is because all of the FDA-approved quit methods have failed for us multiple times. That's the short answer. I would probably order from China, but other people would probably start smoking.
Thank you.
Ms. Porter, you've used e-cigarettes for a long time. What kind of regulation do you think is appropriate?
I've used e-cigarettes for 9 years, and just to kind of bring a point, there are 11 million regular e-cigarette users who are adults and obtaining these products legally. And I also want to say that the products that I have been vaping for 9 years are not 59 milligrams, or 12 milligrams. I think that regarding the product, the manufacturing of the product, insisting on good manufacturing practices, GMP, is something that is important, and that is something that I look for in the products that I purchase as someone who has, making sure that nothing gets adulterated, that there isn't cross-contamination in the production of the product. With regard to kids, I think we don't even talk much about enforcement. In the state of Wisconsin, police would send decoys in to see if young people could potentially buy a pack of cigarettes. Stores were fined substantially if they violated that. Same with underage drinking. We did the same thing. And that kind of regular enforcement, I think, is something that is quite important, that doesn't seem to really be a priority is folks are fully, neck deep in the panic about vaping. But again, I point out that if you get rid of flavors from vaping or vapor products, then you are stranding 8 million people at least who are ex-smokers and 11 million people from access to products that work so that they don't pick up a pack of cigarettes. With regard to advertising, I think I made a note here. Hoodies? I mean, who makes this garbage? This kind of stuff, obviously, if it is marketed directly to children, it's appalling. There isn't a single person who uses a vapor product who is an adult who thinks it's appropriate for young people, freshmen, 9th graders, or 8th graders, or 6th graders, to be able to pass around vapor products. And I also think that we need to really understand here that it appears from all indications, and no, we don't have evidence, but from all indications, these diseases, which are, and I don't want one of these diseases, by the way. I don't want to suddenly wake up one day and not be able to breathe. That's why I quit smoking.
Your time is up. Thank you so much.
But I do think that we can do something about the adulterated products on the streets.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Porter, I'm grateful for every one adult smoker that e-cigarettes are actually helping to quit nicotine. But for every one adult smoker that is being helped, 81 kids will be introduced to nicotine through e-cigarettes and graduate to cigarette addiction as an adult. None of us want that.
And that's an impossible statistic. There are 11 million vapors. There are 11 million vapors.
Claiming my time. I was just making a statement.
Porter,
I actually
please.
wasn't posing a question to you.
Please let Ms. Presley finish her question.
So I just didn't want to take away from your own personal experience. So now I'll get to Dr. Rizzo.
Ms. Porter, you said you smoked for 20-some years?
23.
When you started, did you just think that was really cool?
Sure did. Thought it was the coolest thing. I thought I'm listening to jazz and drinking whiskey and smoking a cigarette.
Yeah. I remember, movies about World War II, and everybody had a cigarette hanging out of their mouth, and the message was just that was a cool thing to happen in the 50s and 60s. And
my movie was House of Games. That was my movie.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. And you are concerned about youth using e-cigarettes?
Absolutely. I'm concerned about youth using e-cigarettes. I'm concerned about youth smoking, which it's an amazing statistic that now youth smoking is so low. And then after today's testimony from multiple witnesses, I'm now very concerned at the 12.5% of youth who are saying that they're using pot. But yes, the youth, kids are going to do things that are risky, but we should try to make sure that they don't make dumb choices like I did when I was, 18 or 19 years old.
Well, I remember our next-door neighbor had a catawba tree, and the kids thought it'd be really cool to light those long cigar-looking things. That really smelled terrible. Once you went to e-cigarettes, did you ever notice how bad your clothing smelled, or how bad your hair smelled, or your house?
Yeah, oh, sure. And within about 2 weeks of switching to e-cigarettes, I couldn't tolerate the smell of smoking. I couldn't tolerate the smell of somebody who had been smoking an hour earlier. I became one of those people who just became an annoying ex-smoker. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, it's very obvious. The more obvious change, though, came about 3 months after I'd begun vaping. And just to see, I went to go to my physician and asked for a chest x-ray to see if I had done permanent damage. I wanted to know if I was going to be sick and die, potentially of lung cancer, if I had the beginnings of COPD.
Did you, in 3 months, did you think your lungs were going to change?
Yeah, because I felt so much better. And my doc said, your lungs are pretty clear. And I said, well, good, because I quit smoking. She said, I can tell.
Well, you mentioned a much lesser amount of nicotine in the e-cigarettes. Is there a step down that if you were a smoker to?
There's a lot of misunderstanding of what the marketplace is for the vapor products, the liquid itself. It can go from 0 milligrams of nicotine to, with some of what they call salts, to as high as potentially 60 milligrams of nicotine. People like me, I don't use salts. I use just regular old-fashioned e-liquid. I use 12 milligrams. Depending on the device, there are multiple different types of devices you can use. I can use as little as 3 milligrams of nicotine in e-liquid. And yes, you can absolutely, there are multiple different variations in concentration of the liquid itself.
So it would be possible that you could step down and totally get off of
People do it all the time. In fact, on my Facebook page, when I asked for some stories, multiple people said I began at 18, I stepped down to 12, I went down to 9, and then I was at 0. Some people are still vaping 0. Some people just decided to use that 0 point to quit vaping as well.
I didn't realize my time was up. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman Miller.
And Ms. Porter, I was reading because I want to know more about you and your beliefs, and I respect that. We all have different beliefs, but you call yourself a converted conservative and reformed Marxist. Are you a conspiracy theorist?
I think my politics are entirely irrelevant to this hearing.
Oh, okay. Why were you winking at one of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle? You winked.
Because I know Glenn Grothman.
Oh, that's what so the winking, did he?
He introduced me.
Oh,
he's a friend of mine.
Okay, I understand. I didn't know what the winking was because I thought maybe there was something like a conspiracy thing going on there. I didn't know.
You think there's a conspiracy in this hearing, ma'am?
No, I actually think people are speaking truth here, and you can provide information.
May I address the truth?
No.
Well, the truth to you is very different for the majority of people in this room who do believe that children are being
The truth for me is I
targeted
quit
by
smoking with e-cigarettes, and so did 8 million other people.
You're still smoking.
I'm not smoking.
Thank you.
And I'm not lying under oath.
Order, please. I'd like to thank our witnesses for their testimony today. Without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days within which to submit additional written questions for the witnesses to the chair, which will be forwarded to the witnesses for responses. I ask our witnesses to please respond as promptly as you are able. This hearing is adjourned.